We are only seeing the beginning. And unfortunately, I think in law enforcement, we're probably not as prepared as we should be to deal with it.
New York police and the FBI netted a record 838 pounds of heroin today. The dope's worth $1 billion, and it's probably the biggest bust in U.S. history. Authorities say they seized enough Asian heroin to supply half of New York City's 200,000 addicts for a year. The drugs were hidden inside lawnmower tires. More than $3 million in cash was also found. Ooh, yeah. The FBI has cracked one of the largest international heroin trafficking rings, a ring with ties to the Bay Area. Agents in New York have seized more than 800 pounds of heroin hidden in small tires and $3 million in cash, too. At least 19 people were arrested in 4 different cities, including San Francisco. The FBI says that ring was run by suspects from Hong Kong, Singapore, and Taiwan. One Bay Area man was arrested for his alleged role in that operation. Xu Ching-hum pleaded not guilty in federal court in San Francisco today.
Police are also still looking for 2 suspects seen running from the scene of another overnight homicide. 18-year-old Larry Owens of Baltimore was shot to death about 11 last night as he was sitting on his bike near the corner of Longwood Street and North Avenue. Police say he was shot in the back of the head. Detectives tell us Owens has had as many as 30 bags of what is believed to be heroin on him at the time.
In a very short period of time, I knew we had a problem.
Hopkins may also be instrumental in helping to alert law enforcement to another potentially lethal trend, the mixture of crack and heroin. He told his Senate Judiciary Committee hearing that this growing trend might lead to dual addictions, especially among children. Hopkins has seen a lot in his time. He's seen crack, for example, evolve from a small entrepreneurial business to one resembling big business.
I've heard many people compare it with Wall Street. In the way they advertise drugs, they actually have calling cards that they give out, letting you know what they're selling and when they're selling and where they're selling it at.
Hopkins offers some other unique observations. While special police drug squads like New York's tactical narcotics teams do good work, sweeping dealers out of communities, the dealers quickly dispatch steerers into the community to tell addicts where to buy the drugs instead. And have you ever wondered why you mostly see black and Hispanic neighborhoods shown on news stories about drugs? Hopkins says it is because drug selling is more open in the black community, and he says people who use drugs in the white communities won't allow street sales there, so they drive into the poorer inner city neighborhoods to buy their goods. While Hopkins says the drug problem has gotten worse, he remains optimistic.
I do believe that the pendulum has to swing almost to the extreme before it comes back to the center again. I do believe that somewhere along the line we will solve the problem.
Hopkins plans to retire next year, a weary soldier perhaps, but not one who ever gave up. Charles Feldman, CNN,
worth over
New York.
$2 million in the largest bust in Oakland in 11 years. 5 people living in an apartment building were arrested this weekend. The potent, gooey heroin caused 3 deaths and injuries ranging from broken bones to brain damage. Overdoses were reported at 1 an hour compared to the usual 1 or 2 a day. Police say the heroin may be powerful because dealers are careless.
It's manufactured different ways in Mexico, and even they don't know what potency they're getting. So when they send it over here, the dealers that they send it to usually expect a particular potency, maybe 40 to 50% pure. And every once in a while they send up a batch that could be anywhere from 70 to 80% pure.
Officers say somewhere along the line someone forgot to cut the heroin. It was 10 times as powerful as usual. The drug's become so popular here because it's easy to smuggle across the border in bags taped to the body.
Police say these hard blocks of heroin from Mexico, known as black tar, are the most powerful form of the drug sold in the United States. These 4 pounds of the stuff are worth $2 to $3 million by the time they're cut up for the street.
This is the way it's brought up from Mexico in the black tar form. It's basically uncut heroin. It's about the purest form of heroin that you're going to see this is the way it comes across the border.
The dope represents the biggest heroin bust in Oakland since 1978. It was found hidden in the walls of an Oakland apartment. 5 people were arrested, including this woman, who police say is a major heroin supplier to the East Bay. In San Francisco, police are tracing the dealer who sold black tar heroin in the Tenderloin, which led to 3 overdose deaths over the weekend.
The heroin we submitted was 38% pure. And normally we're seeing on the streets of San Francisco somewhere between 3 and 5% in purity. 2
more heroin overdose cases were treated at San Francisco General today, bringing the total to nearly 60 since Friday. And today, police in San Jose acknowledged that the coroner there is investigating the death of 24-year-old Ramon Flores from a possible heroin overdose during the weekend.
Bay Area police don't believe there is any connection between the Oakland bust and the San Francisco overdose deaths, except that as the crackdown on cocaine picks up steam, more drug users may be turning back to heroin.
Drug counselors say the Tenderloin is in a panic over the killer heroin. The Glide Memorial Facts on Crack Crisis Hotline received more than 200 calls about the stuff in 24 hours. Director Eddie Franks says he's been noticing more heroin on the streets since last spring, and dealers, he says, are increasing the potency to compete with crack.
Well, I'm seeing something that might be similar to gasoline wars or something like that, as the effect of the competitiveness of the drugs, of the 2 drugs.
Good evening, I'm Martha Sharon. Dan is on vacation. Police say it's one of the biggest heroin busts in the history of Sacramento County. A 2-month-long undercover investigation ended last night at the Discovery Park Apartments in South Natomas. Officers arrested 6 and netted 2.5 pounds of uncut tar heroin and several ounces of powder cocaine. The drug's estimated street value $750,000. Police also found an assault-type rifle and ammunition for an AK-47. The 6 arrested confessed to being illegal aliens from Mexico. They'll be charged and may be deported. Investigators say they had been living in the Los Angeles area and may have ties to Colombian drug lords. Those who live at the Discovery Park Apartments have mixed reaction to the bust, as our Claudia Cowan reports.
Things were calm tonight at the apartment complex. There were no signs of drugs or trouble. But this resident, who didn't want to be identified, said drug dealing at Discovery Park Apartments is a fact of life, as are fights and vandalism.
These people bring out crowbars and guns and knives. I know next door to me there is a lot of drugs going down.
She claims what police found is just a sampling of what's there, and blames the managers, saying they rent to anyone just to fill vacancies. The managers refused to speak with us.
Other residents were shocked when they heard about the bust, saying they had no idea drugs were dealt here. But at least one resident said it could have happened anywhere, because drugs can be found everywhere.
This is a nice place to live, but, and you feel safe here, but I think drugs are everywhere.
Even Police Chief Jack Kearns said drugs were entering metropolitan Sacramento at an alarming rate.
We're being besieged with the influx of cocaine, heroin, things that we cannot control that are being imported into this state. And we're in a war, and the federal government doesn't seem to realize that.
Agents say they solved part of the problem here by raiding this apartment last night and arresting the people inside. In Sacramento, Claudia Cowan, KOBR 13 News.
Drugs seem to be invading every part of our nation and every level of society. In Lebanon, Pennsylvania, police confiscated these bags filled with grass, sugar, and rock candy. Apparently children, 7 and 8 years old, were pretending to be drug dealers, even keeping actual receipts of sales. The kids were imitating drug dealers they've seen selling pot and cocaine on their neighborhood playgrounds.
Lee Goldman reports tonight on the growing Mexican connection.
Yesterday's raid at the Manhattan apartments, the 4th this year, yielded only a gram of black tar heroin and a handful of suspects. But a close look inside the place shows how much business is being done here. Razors are used to cut the heroin to put into plastic bags.
Every one of these scratches that you see on the counter of these cabinets is where deals have gone down. These are all scars, remnants of deals.
Over the past year and a half, more than 165 people have been arrested here for selling or using heroin. Virtually all the suspected dealers have been Mexican illegals. In fact, almost all the heroin dealers caught in this county over the past 3 years have come from the Mexican state of Michoacan.
They have the source. They can sell heroin cheaper than anybody else. They had basically chased what had been our traditional heroin dealers from the market.
Drug agents believe heroin made in the Michoacan city of Aguililla is hand-carried across the border by Mexicans who come to southern San Mateo County to sell it.
Police say counting the number of Mexican heroin dealers here is like counting grains of sand on a beach. There's no organization, no Mexican mafia to track down, if you will. They're individuals who come here because there's already a large Mexican community. Housing is cheap, and there are plenty of buyers.
But the dealers don't stay for long.
If they can come to the United States, if they can make $30,000 or $40,000, which is not out of the question, and be able to transfer that money back home, they can live quite well, maybe even set themselves up for the rest of their lives.
The assistant manager of the Manhattan Apartments, herself from Michoacan, is familiar with that scenario, although not involved herself.
No keep the money over here. He left it to Mexico.
They send it all to Mexico?
Yeah.
Santos Salas, who brought his family here from Aguililla, despises the heroin trade, but $30,000, he says, would buy an estate back home. He'd be a rich man. Most Mexican dealers have no U.S. record, so they spend only 60 to 90 days in jail before being sent back to Mexico. To them, it's worth the risk.
The only way that we're going to have any control is by controlling the source in Mexico.
And that, frustrated county drug agents acknowledge, is out of their hands. In East Palo Alto, Abby Goldman, Channel 5, Eyewitness News.
The San Mateo County District Attorney's Office is hoping to start legal action to shut down the Manhattan Apartments, at least temporarily, within the next 2 weeks. Now, officials say they do not want to rush into it to ensure that legitimate tenants inside that building are not victimized any further.
Still to come on Eyewitness News at 6. Joel.
Bill, the drug problem that has our communities under siege was highlighted yet again last night. The FBI and the New York City Police Department teamed up to break apart an international Asian heroin cartel operating in a quiet part of town. The unlikely neighborhood in Queens, 3 different locations in middle-class communities like Booth Memorial Avenue in Flushing. The FBI and police seized more than $1 billion worth of heroin. That's more than 800 pounds of smack, the largest confiscation in history. At least 17 people were arrested here in New York. 41 others arrested in simultaneous raids throughout the country and in Canada. One of those arrested was the New York kingpin of the operation, Peter Wu, the former Democratic leader of Chinatown. According to the FBI, the international Asian heroin trail begins in Hong Kong and Singapore, where the heroin is packed in small tires to be smuggled into the United States and Canada to major cities, including Los Angeles, Toronto, and here in New York.
800 pounds of heroin is unheard of. The largest French Connection type of case that I'm ever aware of was about 200 pounds back in about 1971. There were several 200-pound seizures, but nothing on this scope.
The police raided this house here and they found 200 pounds of heroin. Residents in good communities like this are always surprised when they find out that drugs have invaded their community. But in point of fact, the drug kingpins, whether Colombian cocaine dealers or Asian heroin smugglers, like to use communities like this for their stash houses, the places where they hide their drugs and their money. That's because in good communities like this, they don't have to compete with outside and other criminals who might rip off their drugs. Are you surprised that...
Very surprised.
Shocked.
I've lived here 51 years.
While residents of Flushing, Queens were stunned that drugs had come to their neighborhood, the FBI knew about it for more than a year. That's how long it took investigators to spring Operation White Mare and dismantle a major Chinese heroin network. The issue of the street gangs and their violence in the Chinatown community is sensitive. A proud and deeply traditional community, Chinatown has a history of success and growth since the first immigrants settled here 130 years ago. It is a community with wealth and clout. In trying to get all sides to tell the story of the street gangs of Chinatown, we found an unwillingness on the part of the mayor's office and the police department to talk openly about the problem. Both the mayor's office and the police department declining interviews, emphasizing the issue was too sensitive. Sensitive or not, the Chinese street gang phenomenon is growing.
Getting bigger.
It's getting bigger?
Yeah.
The gang business is getting bigger. Why is that?
I don't know.
more Chinese, they're getting more powers and stuff. Extortion.
Extortion?
Yeah.
One of the reasons given by the FBI for the growth of the Chinese street gangs is the expanding power of the alleged Chinese secret societies called triads and tongs. Based in Hong Kong and Taiwan, these so-called secret societies have arms that allegedly reach right into Chinatown, allegedly reach right into the Chinatown hierarchy of the Chinese Freemasons. This schematic diagram, correlated through FBI research and an Eyewitness News Chinatown source, reveals the alleged relationship of Tong to gang and their divisions. The On Leon Tong of Chinatown is allegedly connected with the Ghost Shadows gang, the Mott Street and the Bayard Street factions. The Hip Sing Tong is allegedly connected with the Flying Dragon Street gang on Pell Street. The Tong On Tong is allegedly connected with the Tong On and the White Tiger Street gang. Other Chinatown street gangs have no substantiated relationship with the Tongs, but are no less violent and are allegedly involved in extortion and murder. Street gangs like the Fuk Chin, Green Dragons, and the Gum Seng. In the last 15 years, law enforcement statistics have shown the growth in violence and Chinese street gang activity. Even the former mayor of Chinatown admits that the problem continues and is no longer confined to Chinatown.
Well, I think always the problem, not only for this community, for the community in Queens and other areas.
In other areas, too. In the last 6 months, Chinese street gang activity has erupted in violence throughout parts of the city. There have been at least 8 known Chinese gang-related homicides. The victims of this gang violence, almost exclusively, are Oriental.
Very often, they hit and wound or kill or cripple innocent people. Their victims are, in the overwhelming majority of cases, I'm tempted almost to say in all cases, are other Orientals, because they believe that other Orientals will be very reluctant to cooperate with the police.
Also victimized by the street gang violence is the Chinatown community as a whole, a community of thriving businesses and young people who, despite language and cultural barriers, have achieved the highest success in academic and social endeavors. Despite all the positive, the violent street gangs continue to cast an uneasy shadow over the community.
Where you have gangs on the street and where you have people who are afraid of these gangs, and you're just not going to walk in there and say no more crime.
But those young kids say 13, 14-year-old kids, I don't think anybody can control them.
No one can control them.
Yesterday, New York City police and the FBI concluded what they called the biggest U.S. drug raid ever. 100 FBI agents and policemen raided 3 New York locations and arrested 19 suspects linked to a major Southeast Asian drug ring. They also seized more than 800 pounds of heroin, most of it packaged in these tires, and confiscated $3 million in cash. The drugs were shipped from the infamous Golden Triangle, an area that includes Thailand, Burma, and Laos. The raids followed an 18-month international investigation involving police departments from Hong Kong to New York. Worldwide, 45 members of the Southeast Asian drug ring have been arrested. Officials say the raids confirm that the Chinese have now replaced traditional organized crime groups as major suppliers of heroin to the U.S.
Over the last few years, the Chinese have greatly increased their activity in the illegal heroin distribution. We estimate that today they control 70 to 80% of the heroin operation here in New York City.
Officials say the amount of heroin seized would supply about half of New York's addict population for a year.
This is the way AIDS is spreading most rapidly through our population. I know it's not a pretty sight, but if we're going to conquer this disease soon, it won't be in the medical lab. It will be largely on the street corners and drug dens of our cities. That's because homosexuals have gotten the safe sex message, and AIDS rates are down in that particular group. But it's drug addicts who make up the fastest growing segment of AIDS patients. New York City is giving some addicts free needles, but that's not going to work with huge numbers of drug addicts. The best method is to teach them how to clean their needles. A study at the University of California at Davis listed which household items kill the AIDS virus best and which do not. Bleach works the best of all, but is often not available. Surprisingly, a close second, clear dishwashing liquid. Rubbing alcohol, brandy, and vodka are next. White wine doesn't work. Now, before you write me, let me emphasize I'm not advocating drug use. But the truth is, nothing you or I say is going to stop people, millions of people, from sticking needles in their arms. So maybe we can't stop them from doing that, but we may be able to stop this virus. I'm Dr. Dean Adele.
John Parker is no stranger to heroin. He was once a user, stole to support his habit, did time for it. Now he faces doing more time because of what he does for other users.
You know not to share syringes, right?
When Parker was shooting up back in the 70s, he often shared his works, needles and cookers, with other addicts. No one knew of AIDS then, knew that sharing needles meant sharing the disease.
I took my AIDS test and it came back positive.
Parker brings clean needles to more than 200 addicts every week. Says he's lucky he didn't get AIDS before he kicked the habit 14 years ago. Before he went on to college, then went to Yale to study medicine and public health. Had AIDS been around in his user days,
I could see myself testing positive for AIDS and being so angry and finding out that the reason I didn't know was because people thought I wasn't worth the effort.
most addicts do know the dangers of sharing now, but when they are sick in need of a fix, that danger is often forgotten.
Nothing runs through my mind. The only thing that runs through my mind is, wow, I hope it's good. I hope I feel it.
This is the last time I seen you, right? Did you share?
John Parker gives away clean syringes, which is illegal. He was arrested last fall, goes on trial for it next month, but still does it. In Massachusetts, syringes can't be sold over the counter. The street price for a clean syringe can be $10. Parker buys them legally out of state.
We get them for $15 for 100. So for $15, I can keep an addict AIDS-free, for 1 or 2 weeks. $15 wouldn't buy you a half hour in the hospital.
It could buy Parker another jail term.
I hope that John and people like him are put away for as long as it takes until they would agree not to continue breaking the law.
Many lawmakers think handing out needles, clean or otherwise, spreads addiction. Parker says they miss the point.
Being a drug addict is on this level. Having AIDS is on this level. We just try to keep people AIDS-free so they can find the treatment, the proper treatment for themselves. Okay, let me give you one of these bleach things here, right? As if you got to share. You can clean it with the bleach, clean the needle a couple times, it kills the AIDS virus.
In Boston's combat zone and other areas where there are shooting galleries, Parker and his volunteers put out the word when they are not giving out clean needles. He could, of course, drop this, go back to Yale, graduate, and make money. He could, but
I don't think I could live with myself. Eventually I'm going to go back to school, but right now there's more of a need for me out here.
A jury may not agree. Fred Briggs, NBC News, Boston.
No more needles, 'cause needles are gas. No more needles.
At 2 o'clock every afternoon, a small band of protesters gather outside the office of the AIDS Brigade in Mission Hill to shout out their opposition to John Parker's Clean Needle Exchange program. Leading the picketing are some familiar faces in the neighborhood. The Reverend Graylin Ellis Hagler, whose Church of the United Community is located just a few blocks away, and Hattie Dudley, a longtime Mission Hill resident and activist. They are the loudest voices among the chorus of opposition to what the AIDS Brigade is doing in their community.
The fact is this organization spit in everybody's face. A group of outsiders who came in as great messiahs to tell everybody what they needed, when they needed it, and how they needed it. And that can't be tolerated anywhere. And that would not be tolerated in any other neighborhood, any other community in the city of Boston.
For the last 6 years, Reverend Ellis Hagler's church has been the daily meeting place for thousands of recovering drug addicts. This morning was no exception. 41-year-old Anthony Brown has been off drugs for the last 3 years, having kicked an 18-year-old habit. Today, he volunteered to join Ellis Hagler and others on the picket line.
I think that we need treatment, and that's what the rallies have been about. We need treatment rather than giving needles to addicts.
How has the community changed since you first moved in?
Well, the community has changed in that the residents, are more involved in what's going on the positive side. On the negative side, there's an increase in crime and drugs, as it is in any other community.
Hattie Dudley has lived in the Mission Hill section of Boston for 18 years. She has raised 7 children. She admits this is a turf struggle for her, but she says that's not all it is. Why are you opposed to this clean needle situation?
I'm opposed to it because it creates a market for increased drug selling.
And in what way? I mean, they're up there
Okay,
trying to-
basically every person in the community who need clean works will come to the site, pick up their works, and after that they'll be looking for the drug. And it means every pusher in the city will come this way and start using this area as a place to sell from.
Is there a bad drug problem right now?
Well, we
Dealers,
have
sellers.
Well, we have a problem with drugs, but I'm saying that if you think we have a problem now, you think about that 10 times over.
Yeah. Because the true prevention of AIDS is really going to be removing the spike from people's arms to begin with, removing the shared cookers and the shared needles out of circulation in the community, reducing the demand for drug use and people being addicted to it.
You're opposed to it, but I don't see what the tangible option is that you're offering people.
The tangible option is to quit. We believe in treatment, so that we don't believe in allowing someone to be dependent upon clean works. They need to quit. Make a decision. Either you are or you're not. They have to go. And I'm willing to be here as long as it takes to get them out of the neighborhood. And that's clear.
Is this the best way to do it?
I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. Certainly we have to bring to the attention of the city that, distributing needles is still illegal. And the police have to do their job. They did their job doing the Stewart case on our neighborhood. And what we want them to do now is to come back to our neighborhood and do their job now. This is a democracy. If the voice of the people in the community is the one that's supposed to be heard, then we want them out. And they got to go.
If you watch Boston television news with any regularity, you have probably seen this man before. He is the Reverend Graylin Ellis Hagler, leader of the United Church of the Community in Roxbury, and if he has his way, the next mayor of the city of Boston. How long have you wanted to be mayor?
Well, I don't know if I want to be mayor. That is something that we're looking at and we're discussing and we're debating. I would almost say at this point that I don't want to be mayor. I would almost say at this point that I don't want to run. But there are some issues in this community that have not been addressed by this administration.
If they think that we're going away with crumbs or with nothing from anybody, they're wrong. We've been out here in the cold and we will continue to be out here. We've said that if we don't work, nobody works. Is that right? Right.
In the tradition of Jesse Jackson, whom he worked with while living in Chicago, Ellis Hagler's ministry is one of confrontation for the sake of empowerment. He describes what he preaches as liberation theology, liberation from drugs, liberation from crime, liberation from poverty.
Some people say the main problem they have with you is that that you grandstand, that you're out for your own, whatever, your own political gain.
I almost don't want to entertain that issue because the reality is I've been serving a constituency. And really, if you look at what is leadership, well, true leadership is following folk. And that's what I've been doing, following folk.
Most recently, we have seen Ellis Hagler confronting John Parker and the AIDS Brigade on the streets of Mission Hill. The brigade's attempt to run a needle exchange program for drug addicts a few blocks from Ellis Hagler's church ended after a week of picketing outside the brigade's office. But the picketing was not always peaceful. At one point, the shouting between Ellis Hagler and Parker turned to shoving.
I was forced into a position of defending myself from a bodily assault. I think that's explanatory. At the same time, I think you are also looking at the agent of an organization that was engaged in illegalities in the community. But that was being sanctioned by the mayor's office.
Yeah. Does it suggest, though, that perhaps you are a little bit too, for lack of a better word, radical for the job of mayor?
What do I say? You need to stand up for the right. You need to oppose the wrong.
I honestly believe Graylin is a very gifted prophet. He's theologically very sound, very committed. You know, what he says is what he means.
One of Ellis Hagler's staunchest supporters is his wife of 10 years, the Reverend Elizabeth Ellis Hagler of the Unitarian Universalist Urban Ministry of Boston. She is the Ellis in the family name Ellis Hagler. Is Graylin the next Mel King?
Do you think he is? I don't know. He's...
A lot of people say he isn't, though, because he is not as astute at fostering coalitions. Some people think he grandstands. What do you say?
Again, I have to come back and say, listen to what he says and has said over and over and over again. He's really good at, getting public attention, and I think that's an asset. He knows how to do it, but he always does it for something.
Why would you ever want to take on a fellow with that air of invincibility?
Well, David took on Goliath. That's one thing that I do know from my biblical tradition, and won.
The Reverend Ellis Hagler is still just thinking about a run for mayor. He hasn't decided to do it for sure. But if he does enter the race, he may not be the only outspoken minister running this year. There are hints that the Reverend Charles Stith is considering a run for mayor too. For the 10 o'clock news, I'm Marcus Jones.
The taxpayers' worry comes from the virus's unchecked spread among minorities, especially IV drug users who are notoriously difficult to reach with preventive education.
My mom was only 50 years old when she passed away. She's an IV drug user for as long as I can remember she was. As far as I know, she was still shooting drugs till the day she died, because when we took her bed apart, we found these needles there. When I'm laying around, I think about the people that she was sharing her needles with. If they knew that she had AIDS, are they infected with AIDS? Are they yet and still passing this AIDS virus around? And it's really scary to think about it. It really is really scary.
God bless.
You know
Needle
what?
exchange. Stop AIDS.
One answer to this crisis creates moral and political dilemmas of its own, making sure drug users can get clean needles so they don't pass around the virus by sharing syringes.
All it's doing is giving it's okay. It's okay to shoot heroin.
The heroin problem is not the problem. You're going to have drug users in every city.
It's not
the
heroin.
question is, can we slow down the AIDS problem?
The minute they get through that needle, they're going to throw it down. Some kid's going to run across it. You're not stopping it.
AIDS is avoidable. 99% avoidable. Is it fair for me to engage in intravenous drug use or unsafe sex practices and get infected with the disease and then expect somebody else to assume the responsibility for my care?
In San Francisco, the health system is strained to the limit. In the next 4 years, the city will need to pay more than $30 million a year on AIDS health care.
Alpha Thomas and Joanne Valentine are known on the streets of Dallas as the AIDS ladies.
There you go. There you go.
Thank you.
Thomas works for the Urban League. Valentine is with the county health department. On Friday afternoons, they talk about sex and drugs and AIDS with anyone who will listen.
Information about the AIDS virus. Want to take a brochure?
Well, I'm out here because I'm for real, This is my community, and I care about my black people, and I don't want to see them, falling dead from the virus. I know that's real. All right, bro.
The AIDS ladies are part of a pilot program to keep the disease from spreading among intravenous drug users and their sexual partners.
Primarily, the spread of AIDS in the black community as well as the Hispanic community has been IV drug abuse connected. And when it was not IV drug abuse, then you probably see a lot more heterosexual transmission. So you need to address those issues. It's not, you look at the white community, you see primarily homosexual males. When you look at the black community, you see families.
Oh, yeah. You take care of yourself.
Statistics from the Centers for Disease Control show that AIDS is spreading faster among blacks than among whites. Blacks make up about 12% of the U.S. population, but 24% of the men with AIDS and 54% of the women with AIDS are black.
Now watch.
The figures also show that drug abuse is responsible for a greater share of AIDS cases among blacks than among whites. 81% of white men with AIDS were infected through homosexual or bisexual contact. Only 5% got the disease by sharing needles. For black men with AIDS, it's dramatically different. 45% were exposed to the virus through sexual contact. 33% got AIDS from dirty needles.
Most of the times, let's say an individual who is an IV drug abuser won't go in for AIDS testing or AIDS counseling because they have a lot of shame and embarrassment that's attached to their drug use. So, you know, since we know that, we will bring the help out or the information out to them. This is like for people who shoot up, because, you know, especially a lot of black people think that only those white gay dudes over in North Dallas are getting AIDS. No, but, you know, we got a whole lot of people in our community that shoot drugs, okay? And whole lot. Exactly. See, when they share their works, they're shooting up AIDS, too, see?
A lot of drug addicts know about cleaning needles, but they don't all know how to do it right.
Here's what I always look for. At the very end of here, right in here, if they don't clean these right, blood will be caked up in here. There's what they say the AIDS come from. Right. Now, if I was to want to use a rig, and you put this up here and it had blood up in here, and I couldn't clean, you know what I'm saying? I'd never use it. Okay. You dig? But now, even though there's no blood up in there, he could still have a disease, or I could have a disease.
Thomas and Valentine pass out needle cleaning kits on the street.
This information right here, sir, will tell them what to do with this right here. This is bleach and that's the water. And see, this also has the instructions on it too. Yes, sir, because the bleach will kill the AIDS virus, all right? You get up to anybody you know, homeboy, that shoot up to save their lives, okay?
One of the main reasons they pay attention is because we do come to them and say, I accept you in the position that you're in. Here is something that you can use to help yourself while you're in this position. I have a philosophy that I'm not here to condemn or condone. I'm here to tell you how not to get AIDS. In the black community, we have we have both men and women that are IV drug abusers, but in terms of the manner that it's spread in the family, there are a lot of black men that go out and shoot drugs and share their works, become infected with the AIDS virus, come home, have sex with their wife or sexual partner or whomever, infect her with the AIDS virus, she gets pregnant by him, and then she spreads the disease to the baby.
State law prohibits free needle giveaways, but as News Center 4's Vic Lee reports, state law also gives health departments wide latitude if they can find a medical emergency.
To get a needle in California, you need a prescription. To get a needle exchange program, San Francisco needs a loophole, and there may be one on the books. According to state law, San Francisco can declare an emergency, allowing local health officials to take preventive measures to protect public health. One legal definition of an emergency is an epidemic. We asked Public Health Chief Dr. David Werdiger if that law was the loophole he needed.
The question that you raise, which is an interesting one, is the sort for which I would have to turn to the city attorney's office for guidance. To have our attorneys look, you might say, imaginatively at existing law to see what might be possible to support a demonstration program.
Extraordinary acts by the city to stop the spread of AIDS are not without precedent.
Today, I have ordered the closure of 14 commercial establishments which promote and profit from the spread of AIDS.
In October of 1984, former City Health Director Mervyn Silverman ordered a number of gay bathhouses and sex clubs to close their doors. Dr. Silverman found his loophole through a city ordinance, which health inspectors normally use to penalize or close down dirty restaurants. Using the state emergency powers law to combat AIDS is clearly unprecedented, but medical experts say the disease has reached epidemic proportions, and these are extraordinary times requiring extraordinary acts. Vic Lee, News Center 4.
I am standing in what has come to be known as Needle Park. The city has given it over to cocaine and heroin addicts. It is there for all to see, a proud city's shame. Next to the USA, Switzerland has the highest incidence of AIDS in the developed world. The city is trying to stop the spread of the disease among addicts sharing contaminated needles by isolating them here and giving them free new needles. A park lavatory has been converted for the purpose. For every used needle an addict turns in, he or she gets a free sterile one. About half of these young people are infected. All of them are slowly killing themselves. At the end of the day, the evidence is in. 7,000 dirty needles in this city of 250,000 upright people. Dr. Werner Fuchs runs the Needles in the Park campaign.
We are not, or my task here is not drug prevention at first, but it is AIDS intervention.
AIDS intervention meaning clean needles.
Is clean needles, is consulting, is testing, and it's even, if we have time enough, to draw people out of this drug scene.
But it's a pretty hopeless task, isn't it?
Of course, this is a little bit a hopeless task what one has to do. We have no other chance.
Drug dealing and drug use are illegal in Switzerland, but police in Zurich have been ordered to turn a blind eye in Needle Park in the city's attempt to isolate its problem. As a result, it has become a drug supermarket. Every hard and soft drug is available at stands set up by dealers. Being Zurich, one of the most expensive cities in the world, the price is higher than just about anywhere else in the world. The addicts deal or steal or live off their parents, or they pick up the price of a fix any way they can.
I used to make prostitute.
You used to be a prostitute?
Yeah.
And you're still a prostitute?
Yeah. No, I stopped.
Yes?
I stopped, yeah. The prostitute is the reason why I did start taking drugs.
Where do you get the money now to buy the cocaine?
Now, that's like this. Sometimes I get the feeling, oh, tonight I want to make a party for me. I want to make a coke party. And then I go work, prostitute, get the money, and then I buy the cocaine, I use it, and then finish. And then I stop 2 or 3 weeks. And then again, I don't take every day.
So you don't prostitute, you're a casual prostitute and a casual coke user?
Yes, just like that.
Where do you get the money for it?
This morning I got half of the money from my dad, and the other half of the money I borrowed off of my little sister. That's today. What, 70 francs I came down here.
That's about $60. Rene, a regular in the park, has been in and out of therapy most of his life. After each attempted cure, he comes straight back to the park.
I was spending every day anywhere from 1,000 francs a day to 3,000 because I was taking cocaine like an idiot. Cocaine is a thing that's it's very short. You shoot it, for 5 minutes you have a flash, and then it's finished, and you want more. And the heroin that I needed was costing about 1,000 francs again. So that was the minimum anyway.
$500 or $600 or $700 a day.
Sure, much more.
Where do you get that kind of money?
You deal. I mean, my way of getting it was just to deal. I used to buy it and sell it. I mean, I know a lot of people here. They would give me a load of stuff on commission. I'd sell it, and there you go. Pop goes the weasel. You got the money. It's very easy.
Have you been tested for AIDS?
Yes.
Do you have it? You have it. You're positive. You too?
No. Yet, no. The last test I did in May, and I'm still negative. But it could be that I'm now be positive also.
Remo is 28, Sylvie is 24. She has not only tested positive, she is beginning to suffer the first stages of the disease. For both of them, their main concern now is not AIDS, but getting the $400 or $500 a day they need to support their drug addiction.
And just for heroin, and we like much cocaine. And when you make first shoot with cocaine, you can make stop. You want more, and sometimes we...
Are you happy with this life?
No.
What we are doing here is a desperate task. It's 5 minutes past 12 o'clock, if you regard the whole framework of AIDS intervention. And what we are doing is a little bit schizophrenic. It is a schizophrenic situation. We are doing this here, and 10 minutes away from this place, we have the center of our banks, and everyone is knowing about things like money washing, you see.
Drug money washing?
Yes, of course.
So they're getting rich over there and they're dying over here.
If you see it simple like it, you can say it, yes.
It is almost that simple. Less than 10 minutes away is the Bahnhofstrasse, probably the richest commercial street in the world. Tucked discreetly behind the shops selling garish $50,000 watches are the Swiss banks, which, despite some new laws, ask few questions when it comes to handling clients' money. Beneath the pavement of the Bahnhofstrasse are vaults holding billions of dollars worth of laundered gold.
I think Switzerland is a very sick country today. I'm sorry to say so, but I think it's a fact.
Jean Ziegler is a member of the Swiss parliament. He has long been an advocate of changing the banking secrecy laws that he says protects drug dealing and money laundering.
Our raw material is money. Mostly stolen money, tax evasion money, drug money.
You say mostly?
Mostly, I think. Mostly, I think. And because of the banking secrecy, of the very great efficiency of Swiss bankers. And there is a deep moral crisis in Switzerland. And I think young people, they are revolted against this richness,
materialism,
this materialism, this very, very passionate search for profit at any price, which is the characteristic of the Swiss banker. And they just drift away.
But if you say to that same banker,
yes,
come here, I want to show you what's happening.
Yes.
What does he say?
They are moral men, you know.
Moral men?
They are very decent men in private, but they are completely cynical when it comes to business. When it comes to business. And I think if you show a dying kid or one of these drug kids to a banker, I think they would be alarmed. They would be alarmed. But then they would say, what can I do? Money has no color, has no odor, has no smell. I'm doing my business. That's a very hypocrite way of seeing the world, but a very efficient way, a very efficient way.
The truth of it is that the park and its inhabitants are practically invisible to those good moral burghers who pass it each day. If they regard these young people as the scum of the earth, what does that make of the people who profit from them? Some may even be their own children. Marco comes from an upper-class family, a graduate psychologist, a full-time junkie.
Heroin is like a wetsuit. A diver uses a wetsuit to keep warm underwater. Yeah? And heroin is like a wetsuit. With heroin itself, you're happy. So you're not cold inside.
So you're telling me you're a happy man?
No, I'm not telling you I'm a happy man, no. Because somebody who is using a substance which is controlling him from outside can't be a happy man, no.
The idea was to isolate the problem by letting it fester in the park. But it's become a kind of fairground, with all the attractions fatal.
Whenever I come back to Zurich, I don't know, it's like a magnet, this place. It pulls me down again, you know. There's something inside that, I don't know. I think for the rest of one's life, it's always going to be saying, come on, it's nice, especially if you face any kind of problem, or if you have a day where there's, I don't know, a day where you're bored, or for any little, anything that's not running smoothly or
How
that's
old
difficult.
Are you?
Me, I'm 20.
20?
20.
How long have you been? How long have you been on heroin?
Since I was 16.
There's some terrible irony at work here. Well, this place in the middle of this city, probably the richest city in the world, maybe.
Irony? Why?
So wealthy, so conservative, so clean.
Well, that's why it exists. Because the Swiss, they like things to be organized, you know?
It's a very typical Swiss reaction. Not facing the problem, just put it away. Just create some sort of a ghetto, hoping that nobody will look at this ghetto and that somehow these kids will die quietly, without protesting, without making too much trouble.
There are no figures on how many of these addicts die from AIDS. Many just drift away. It is known that more than 250 died last year from addiction alone. And the rate of addiction is increasing. The population of the park is increasing. The number overdosing is increasing. The medical staff tries to help. And the addicts, many of them who've lost hope for themselves, try to help each other. It is quite touching, this drunken dance. One man trying to keep the other, who has overdosed, upright and moving, trying to stop him from succumbing. The fight is for life. Annette Holtz is a social worker volunteer. She has watched life and death in Needle Park for 4 years. She feels that death may be the best alternative.
It's a relief for those people. It relieves us somehow because we know they won't get out of the drugs anyway. Those people that have died.
Better dead.
Better dead, and they got their peace. And I hope so they got their peace.
Annette Holtz does not make that statement lightly. Her own 22-year-old son has been in the park for almost 5 years. One of the living dead who lives from fix to fix. One of the players in the macabre drama that is played out each day in one of the world's financial capitals. The bankers in the Bahnhofstrasse are comfortably appalled by all this, not noticing perhaps the smell of some of their own money. But they do their bit. They see to it that the city keeps the place clean. So when the time comes for the victims to die, they will die in a neat and tidy place. Do you think you'll live to be 30 years old?
No. Maybe.
For the victims of addiction, life becomes centered on small bags of chemicals. For this addict, the drug of choice is not cocaine, it's heroin.
I'll stay clean for maybe a week, 2 weeks, and then if I run into a problem, I'll use this as a crutch, and I go right back on it again.
As he prepares to inject $25 worth of street heroin into his blood system, he bemoans the fact that his girlfriend is now hooked on cocaine.
She's losing a lot of weight, and you can see it in her face and in her body. She's lost maybe 30, 35 pounds, and it's starting to affect her in her job and paying bills.
But for a few minutes, whatever is now troubling this addict will seem to drift away as the drug leaves the syringe and rushes to his brain.
Oh, I start feeling it now. It's warm.
Though the feeling, he says, is embracing, he knows it can be a long way down after the high is gone.
Nothing bothers me right now at this moment. I don't have any care or any problems. Everything's beautiful. Everything's nice. It's just tomorrow morning when I wake up and I gotta face the world again. And face myself.
He now burns the paper which once contained the heroin, the paper that bore the dealer's identifying stamp. It said, "Be happy."
I'm feeling like I just want to die. I'd rather be dead than go through this.
This is the low side of addiction.
Deep, deep depressions that really scare me because I have been suicidal. I'm really terrified. I'm terrified of taking my own life or his.
Julie and her boyfriend Randy are going through withdrawal.
I want some help. I need some help before something drastic does happen between, Julie and I.
Both, once addicted to cocaine and heroin, are now trying to wean themselves off of methadone, the synthetic heroin substitute, but they are coming down too fast.
I'm scared to death.
At the Erie County Medical Center, they plead for admission, where they can be properly detoxified as inpatients.
We do not have space available, we have 20 beds. Right now I have 23 people in the hospital, which means I've already borrowed beds from other people. Doesn't work well. I understand why you say it. I know you are.
I'm hurting, and now I have to go in the street and lose everything I've worked for. I can't even get help. Why?
They are told to come back in 2 days, when 2 beds will become available in the detox ward. Their counselor urges them to wait it out for 2 more days.
You guys gone through too much to stop now.
I can't wait till Thursday. I'll say I will, but I don't know if I'll be here Thursday. I really don't.
A long 2-day test of nerves for addicts Randy and Julie begins with a triple shot of vodka in Randy's apartment.
If you down something real quick, it's almost like putting that needle in your arm, and it's instantaneous.
They don't expect to sleep much in the next 2 nights.
And we'll both start pacing until we're walk it off. You gotta walk it off, walk it off. Make yourself tired going like this, back and forth, pacing back and forth till you're exhausting yourself.
The next day, they are still walking through Randy's old drug-infested neighborhood where he lost his innocence and a lot more.
I lost my kids, I lost my wife, okay? I lost everything. I lost self-respect.
Again, a visit to the liquor store for more vodka. They must get through this day.
I feel worse than I did yesterday. I thought I'd get better. I feel I'm vibrating now. I felt vibrating the other day, but I got all through my body, you know, my stomach. I'm worse than I was yesterday. But I only got 1 night to go, I hope. If we can make it through tonight, we'll be all right.
I'm shaking too much.
Again, anything to avoid going back to the streets. Instead, they go back to their counseling group, where fellow addicts will offer support by just listening.
It's like I got hair and it's standing up. You know what I mean? Like hot flashes.
It feels like
chills.
a rush.
Yeah,
It goes down.
rush.
You keep on rushing with hot. Then all of a sudden it'll
Real
come
hot
down,
rush.
and then it'll go cold.
Down the road, in a sleazy second-floor apartment in a so-called shooting gallery, others continue to shoot heroin into their veins. Many will be tied to the needle for life. Randy and Julie have made it through the second night. Hope, they say, got them through. Hope that together they can rid their bodies of the toxins that have taken over their lives.
I want to live a nice, healthy, normal life. I never should have got into this, but I learned the hard way, and I don't want to go through it anymore.
It's the beginning of a brighter life, brighter future. It's the beginning of our future.
On the 9th floor of the Erie County Medical Center, Randy and Julie are now being detoxified, along with those addicted to cocaine and heroin. The waiting list is now 10 days to get in. For every 2 addicts who make a clean break, 3 do not.
Well, from our follow-up file tonight, a Buffalo couple trying to shake the horrors of drug addiction has taken a big step toward that goal. They've kicked their habit, at least for now, and News 4's Rich Newberg reported on Randy and Julie as part of our documentary on drugs called Out of Control. Here's Rich's follow-up report.
Randy and Julie, who say they have been drug-free for almost 2 weeks, were part of a celebration today at Columbus Hospital, where they had received counseling for their addiction. It was Community Appreciation Day here. Both had been addicted to cocaine and heroin for years, and after undergoing weeks of supervised withdrawal from methadone, they appeared to be in good spirits.
I feel much better, but I still am having problems sleeping. I still have a little jitteriness.
I feel like a normal person now. I could talk better.
Last month, things were tough. Their ordeal during withdrawal was wrenching. It was made tougher when they were first refused entry into the detoxification unit at the Erie County Medical Center because there weren't enough beds to go around.
I'm hurting, and now I have to go in the street and lose everything I've worked for. I can't even get help. What?
They got in 2 days later and vowed to pull their lives together. The odds are against those who seek to withdraw from hard drugs. There has to be a genuine commitment by the individuals, with perhaps a little help from their friends.
I give them a lot of credit because it's not easy, you know, but they're sticking it out together and everything, so they'll probably, you know, they can do it, I'm sure.
Robert Hernandez is also sure. When he's not behind the drums, he's counseling addicts. He told Randy and Julie they could beat the odds.
I told them, say to yourself, there is no odds. I'm going to do it, period. And there it is. Drug-free.
All they wanted in life was a chance to start over, a chance to live a normal existence. And right now, it looks like they are on their way to beating the odds.